So in 1981, in August 1981, 40 years ago, Lama Yeshe came here for his first and his only visit to Atisha Centre and to the Great Stupa site. At that time, Atisha Centre's down here. The other side of Atisha Centre, Lama was staying in my mother's house, where she offered him her house for the whole time of his stay here at Atisha Centre. And on the morning of the 14th of August, he asked Gary Folks and myself to come for a walk. So we walked up here, and we got to this spot about here. It was all just bushland then. We had no idea why Lama had asked us to come on this walk or where he was taking us. But he got to this point and he said, just up there, I've got an idea that we're going to build this big stupa. And the big stupa, and inside the big stupa would be a big gompa. And I was sort of quite surprised because I didn't know Lama had been here before, even walked up here, but somehow or another he knew exactly what his vision was or what his plan was. And he said where that spot for the big stupa was going to be is exactly where we've sited the Great Stupa of Universal Compassion. Again, this was all just bushland here at all. In fact, a lot of the bush was up over our heads, so we had to sort of fight our way through like this, just to make headway. But we walked up here, and as we walked, Lama said, and with the big stupa there, we're also going to have a village over here. And the village is going to be like for the lay community, so there'll be families and there'll be children, there'll be older people and so forth. So anyone who wanted to live here and be part of it, we'd look after them in the village. Now today we call this village Lama Yeshe village, and we're getting very, very close to actually getting all the approvals and so forth for the Lama Yeshe village to be approved, so that we can actually start 40 years later to actually have that village available. Now Lama also talked about the idea of an aged care, or he called it a hospice at that stage as well. And in the long term, that's also something we want to develop here at the Stupa. In fact, over the last 40 years, we've not only been piecing together Atisha Centre and the Monastery and the Great Stupa, and more recently Magic Labdra Nunnery, but we've also been putting in place in our master plan all these other developments as well. On the day, we walked up this hill, and you can see it's actually like a very perfect hill, really. It was very hard to see with all the vegetation what it was like, but in fact he was saying, no, this is the place for it. And so we walked up here. Now when we actually got to the stage in 2000, we actually cleared the site and actually prepared this overall shape. We found that we took out of the middle of it, we took 1 metre off, so we went down 1 metre right in the middle. But the rest of it was all very much just kept to the natural contours of the land. So at this stage we're still working our way through all the vegetation, trying to get over to where Lama said this great big stupa was going to be built. Then we went, still covered with vegetation, but then we went inside this building here. Well, there was no building, but we went into this area here. And we walked right to the centre of this hill. Hi, Andrew. And the centre of the hill was exactly in this spot here, exactly in the middle of what has become the Great Stupa of Universal Compassion. So we stood here with Lama Yeshe and we looked around, and Lama explained where everything would go here, that the whole thing would be this enormous gompa, a big gompa inside a big stupa. As you can see, we're continually working away on the stupa. At the moment, we're just completing this over here on the east side. We're completing all the walls. And over there, we've got the Siddhigarbha statue. Then afterwards, we've got the 1,000-arm Chinrezig statue, of course, our jade Buddha. And then next to that is Padmasambhava. So there's always work going on, construction and artwork inside the Great Stupa. After leaving here, Lama Yeshe came out across here, and we then started to head off in that direction, going further west. And I thought, I don't know where he's taking us. Why is he heading up here? But then he explained, looks very nice, the 16 guidelines. And then we walked over here towards this hill. So 40 years ago, of course, exactly to this day, of course it was a very similar day to this. And the golden wattle, the symbol of Australia, was in bloom everywhere in 1981, just as it is today. And at this point, after leaving the stupa site, Lama Yeshe then said, come this way. And so Gary and I were following him up this hill. And I'm thinking, where's he going, or what's he leading us up here for? I really didn't understand or didn't know, but it was all to be revealed very, very soon as we got to the top of what is now known as Monastery Hill. Again, the bush here was very thick, even thicker than it is today, and we would be pushing our way through, trying to find some sort of pathway up this hill. So it was really quite an experience coming up here with Lama Yeshe on this adventure. You know, at the time I wondered, as I said, I don't think he'd ever walked on this land before. But to me, it was as if he could see the whole thing in his mind. He could actually come to this point and actually could lay out exactly where this should be, where the stupa would be, and then where the monastery would be. So it's quite appropriate that the monastery should be sited on a hill that's higher than the stupa. And that's exactly the way it turned out to be, that Monastery Hill is just slightly higher than the Stupa Hill. So as he walked along here, my impression was that Lama was exactly aware of everything. He could see the whole future laid out in front of him, even though to me it was just lots of bush all the way around, but he could actually see this vision coming to life. And what it was going to be in the future. So we're still going up this hill. And just as we come up to the top of this hill, in fact pretty much where this gate is up ahead of us, Lama stopped and he explained to Gary and myself, this is where the monastery will start. And then he started walking along this high point, this high ridge that runs along the top of this hill. And we just followed him along, and he said the monastery will run down here, we'll continue along down here. And we walked along here with Lama, just all bushland of course. And I think it was about at this point here where I started to think, just how big is this monastery going to be? Because it seemed like we were just walking and continuing to walk through the bushland. And we walked down here. Until eventually we got to this point about down here where Lama said, so the monastery will go from there and it will come down to about this point about down here. It is. And here's Venerable Gyatso, who then built this monastery, along with some others as well.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. And now I hope you enjoy these photographs of the early days of Atisha Centre.